Will be laid to her final resting place. For more on the funeral arrangements and, of course, I suppose the political or the politics around the passing of around her passing in the last 10 or so days, we're now going to be joined in the studio by the SABC's acting political editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, it's been a busy 10 days or thereabouts, and the politics have hardly stayed out, as we saw today, with two memorial services. One, of course, officially by the government and one by the EFF. It
was expected. Mama Winnie had relationships that was larger than what we would think, that perhaps they were mostly contained within the ruling party, the ANC, the party that she loved so much. But unfortunately, she had friends across political line, and also without fear or favor, she would made it clear at that time when she was addressing people. I remember very well in her 80th birthday saying that she's got friends all over and there's no way she is going to abandon her friends. And her love for particularly the EFF leadership, we know very well. You know very well, when they were fired from the ANC, the first place they visited was Mama Winnie's house.
But also what's been interesting is that at both services, of course, all political parties were accommodated. Perhaps it's a stretch to say the DA was there at the EFF memorial service, but certainly Patricia de Lille, a very, very strong presence, sharing her experiences from the Beijing conference and, of course, to those arms deal revelations.
Yes, Patricia de Lille is giving an indication that all is not well within the DA. She chose that platform, I guess, to make a statement. That's how politicians behave. The question is, what does that mean? Is she perhaps planning to leave the DA, or deliberately she chose that platform to go and communicate? And the EFF, it was a strategic move to invite Patricia de Lille to share the stage with them, because you know very well when that motion was tabled in the Western Cape, they didn't support the motion. And of course, surprise, surprise, Minister Kwele, ANC-led government, the minister was there. I saw some ANC leaders in the province. And Mujanku Gumbi, Advocate Mujanku Gumbi, you know her very well, the former legal advisor of former President Thabo Mbeki, Professor Itumeleng Musala, the AZAPU leader. Therefore, that was another platform where one could see that many people went there and they felt this is the place where we can express ourselves.
Perhaps with the exception, as you point out, of the EFF, almost all the political parties, from even the DA, they also were effusive in their praise of her at the weekend at their Congress. And of course, certainly the ANC reclaiming her as their mother. But the convenient or the inconvenient truths perhaps are being left out from the wider narrative around how she was treated when she was alive by those very parties.
It's election year. We're counting few months to the election, and I guess many political parties will use any platform to ensure that the South African public, particularly the voters, are aware that they are still around. And there was no way DA could have taken a different position in terms of how they decided to describe her at that Congress, because it was going to offend many people. We saw the backlash, particularly against those who took a different narrative against her life and time. And therefore, I think everybody wanted to be politically correct.
What's also interesting is you and I would have covered, of course, the funeral, at least the days leading up to the funeral of Nelson Mandela a few years ago. There seems to be a different mood, though, almost quite unexpected, if you think about how South Africans were so polarized in their views of Winnie Madikizela-Mandela when she was alive. The mood is almost in some ways, even supersedes that of the feeling and the sentiment around the passing of Madiba.
Yes, I think it was spontaneous. People saying, we know her, you can't tell us who she is. Secondly, I know I interacted with her many times. She was a troubled soul in terms of how her story is being told. And every time she constantly said to me, Sophie, when I die, you must tell the proper story. Who is Winnie Madikizela-Mandela? If you have to be critical, I'm human. But please, can the South African public tell the true story? And of course, that's what happened this week since her passing on.
Even former apartheid security policemen coming forward to make strong admissions around how they had deliberately created a narrative around her that people believed even to this day. Let's look forward now to the events of the weekend in terms of just how proceedings will happen. Fourways, it's not a really large cemetery. How is this going to play out in terms of what the public will be allowed to see, or will it be a private family affair?
It's not clear yet whether it will be a private family affair. I don't think it will be really that private, but I think an announcement will be made to make the public aware that it is a very small space. You can't have that entire Orlando Stadium going there. Therefore, I think they will give an indication.
Do we have any indication of some of the dignitaries that might attend? I mean, I know a lot of the focus was around the memorial service that we observed today, but might we see any dignitaries at the weekend?
Yes, some African heads of state and also former heads of state. We are expecting international guests, among them Louis Farrakhan and also Naomi Campbell, and already some Americans are already here. We are told that Reverend Jesse Jackson will be making his way down here. And again, the other important issue tonight in Harlem, in New York, there is a memorial service, and our correspondent Shawan Bryce will be there and will give information or communicate the story tomorrow morning. On Saturday, the same day, in the afternoon in New York at the UN precinct, another memorial.
Just again, I suppose, highlights the global figure that she was. And of course, another awful news that came through this morning was the passing away of the former minister, Dr. Zola Skweyiya, who interestingly had a mother named Winnie himself. And the passing just days after Winnie Madikizela-Mandela wasn't without some sadness.
Yes, a veteran who served in Madiba's cabinet, Mbeki's cabinet, and 2009 he was deployed in London as a high commissioner, a senior ANC leader, and who was very forthright, who was very vocal, particularly towards the ANC elective conference last year, raising his concerns around the state of the organization, and also even went as far as calling on the then president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, to step down, a very vocal veteran.
So leaving behind a powerful legacy, I suppose, speaking truth to power right until the end. So many people are going to be leaving the memorial services, certainly in Orlando, to be going to the Skweyiya home to offer their condolences over there.
On Friday also you have the funeral of George Nene. You know, he was a high commissioner in Nigeria. Early years, you'd recall during that frosty relations between South Africa and Nigeria, yes, when a decision was taken to hang Sarawiwa, South Africa took a different position. The then former President Nelson Mandela, and later he was in Geneva. I guess this weekend it's going to be a difficult weekend for the ANC.
Yes, those days when Mandela and Abacha were at each other's, not quite at each other's throats, but certainly taking different political views. All right, so that's the lay of the land in terms of the month of mourning that this April has become. That is, of course, our political editor here at the SABC, Sophie Mokoena. I'm now going to hand over to Francis to take a look at the other stories making headlines today.